Hi, I'm so happy you're here. Welcome to the Let's Keep Moving with Risha podcast. This is Risha. I'm a motivational speaker, content creator, and I love talking about things that will help you keep moving in your life, especially on areas like your life, mental health, love, growth, and everything in between. So if you're ready, let's keep moving. Hello everyone, I am in a totally different setup. It's just across my original setup talaga because I've been moving things around. I have finally moved back home again. I feel like I've done this a couple of times already this year because of finishing college and finishing my OJT. And now I'm finally back home. As you can see, this week is my birthday week. It's a different year. I don't know why. Feeling ko nagkaka-birthday blues ako, pero I don't feel as exciting as I previously do kapag birthday ko. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm aging or like I'm getting older. But I've been reflecting for some time now. I have reflected on this for a while, but I wanna live rent-free muna for a while. I've been out for like 4 years, and I've basically seen so much possibilities, you know that. And when you're at home, it's so easy to be dictated by the beliefs of the people around you. Not just even your parents, but even your distant relatives. And when you don't have clear boundaries, specifically mental boundaries, it's so easy to be swayed by every noise around you, by what people are telling about you, by all the unsolicited advice that people are telling to you. And so I have a very interesting story that I want to start with for today's episode. Actually, this is a point of reference and it is so perfect for our episode today. So, one of my relatives have a celebration, and my auntie, who happens to be abroad, na tita niya then called me and kind of asked me to attend the event as a favor to her. And so this auntie is kind of opinionated then for the longest time. And you know na it's coming from a place of love naman and concern, but because you have seen so much of the world, you know na her opinion doesn't align anymore with how you want to live your life. And I feel like hindi lang ako yung nakaka-experience ng ganito, pero I'm I'm having this feeling that everybody has this distant relative who always have that opinion over your decisions in life. And sabi niya, pumunta daw ako kasi para makakilala naman daw ako ng mga doktor doon, mga professional, kasi for sure doon din naman daw yung punta ko since related siya sa tinapos kong course. And then, sabi ko, I don't wanna attend because I have church at that time. I do attend church every Sunday. And you know what she told me? Nandun pa din naman daw yung church next week, next Sunday. And then out of nowhere, she kinda talked about my plans with my life and that I'm now out of university. Mag-aasawa na daw ba ako? At bigla niyang sabi na parang may gatas pa daw ako sa labi. So if you're not familiar with that term na may gatas pa sa labi, it's like a term used by the older generation telling you na sobrang bata mo pa, may gatas ka pa sa labi. And honestly, I'm not very fond of going to celebrations since I started doing content and since I went to college. Unless I'm in a totally good mood that the people there or that the people in the celebration deserves my energy. So cutting the long story short, hindi po ako umattend. My parents do not and cannot even force me to join them attending celebrations. So no one can scare me at that point. And then you know what? After that celebration, she messaged me, this distant relative, this auntie, and she thanked me. And that thank you is with sarcasm. And I can read between the lines na may sarcasm yun. And so, for me, she cannot really make me guilty because I know we're not aligned anymore and her views about my life and about life in general, I know is outdated. Alam mo yun, there are people in your life wherein hindi mo na sila gustong i-convince because you know na they cannot catch up with your views anymore and with your stand in life. So today I want to talk about it. Today, I want to talk about those people who are trying to make us guilty for standing on our values and for sticking with our values. And today, let's talk about how do you really set boundaries without feeling guilty, because I know that there would always be people who will keep making us feel guilty for every decision that we make, as if we're still a kid, as if they always know better than us. And so, if you happen to have this kind of distant relative, then without further ado, let's keep moving. So, whenever people give you opinions, whenever people give you criticisms or expectations that do not align with your values and your vision for your life, you don't always have to fight with these people. You don't always have to explain yourself or even defend your choices. Sometimes, and I've learned this the hard way, the most powerful thing you can do is to just quietly tell yourself, I reject that. So that's our first point. Quietly tell yourself, especially if you cannot tell it aloud, I reject that. Like literal na, I reject that. Because not every comment, even if it's directed to you or related to you, deserves space in your mind. Not every opinion in your life is worth carrying. It doesn't mean that you don't love the people around you. It doesn't mean that I don't love this distant relative. It just means that you're choosing which beliefs and narratives and opinions you allow to shape your future. Saying na, I reject that, I do not accept that, is not really disrespect. Siyempre, kapag sinasabi mo lang naman to sa sarili mo, it's preserving yourself. It's focusing on what really matters to you and what really matters to you in the season. It's really telling yourself na, I hear what this person is telling, but that doesn't belong to me. I hear what her opinion is about. I know where it's coming from, but I don't want to hold it. I don't want to carry it. And when you practice this internally, I mean, you don't even have to say this aloud. Like, I reject that. You don't even have to say this aloud. You just have to tell it to yourself. Like internally, I reject that. You'll notice na you'll no longer feel guilty for not following every piece of unsolicited advice na binibigay ng ibang tao sa'yo, because you've already made peace that you decide what sticks and what doesn't. Because you already know internally what works and what doesn't. What opinion matters, whose opinion matters. And from there, you just have to practice telling yourself talaga na, I reject that. When someone older, for example, yung mga tita nyo, or lola, who gives advice that doesn't align with your path, you don't even have to argue with them or change their mind. Madalas kasi parang feeling ko that's the number one reason why we tend to be so stressed when it comes to dealing with our older relatives. We want to change their minds. We want to convince them na tama tayo, na ito na yung narating natin, may proof tayo. But at the end of the day, you have to understand that these people said that advice not so you can change it. Again, these people, they told that advice, they told those words not just so you can change their mind. They told it because that's what their belief is. Just tell yourself na I reject that. You honor them by listening, but you also honor yourself by not carrying what doesn't belong to you. Because not every I reject that needs to be spoken. Remember, when you say that in front of your distant relatives or your neighbor or someone whose advice doesn't align with you, that's a kind of disrespect, at least for them. Most of the time, it just have to be internal. Kailangan mo lang talagang sabihin sa sarili mo na, I reject that. I do not believe that. I refuse to follow that advice. But if needed, pwede mo namang calmly sabihin in a nice way, please, na thank you po, but I see things differently. Thank you po, but I'll try to follow that advice maybe soon. I understand po where you're coming from, pero I choose to follow my own path. And you live it at that. This works every time somebody is trying to teach you something or give you an advice on something or just generally trying to bring you into their world. Learn to tell yourself na I reject that. You can accept some and reject the others. Hindi entirely na you reject this person, you can just reject the belief. You can reject the opinion. Hindi porket sinabi mo na I reject that, that already means na I reject that person or I hate that person. Hindi. It just means na you reject that belief. You don't want that to be your belief and so you reject it. I just want to add na it's really telling yourself and telling your mind na hindi ako naniniwala doon. That is not my truth. And I think I've practiced this in some areas of my life because I firmly believe and I've learned that your mind is precious. Your energy is precious. You have to be careful of what you put in it. I've mentioned that compared to the past years na hindi talaga ako nagpupunta regularly sa church every single week, for the past year, I've been very consistent. Siguro if may masiskip man ako, it's because I'm sick or I have a very important matter to attend. But generally, I've been very consistent talaga every single week. And one of the things that I learned is to say to myself, every time na something doesn't sit right with me, I reject that. Because sometimes what's being taught sa church, it's coming from a place of good intention, of course. But we have to understand then na these opinions, this preaching or this sermon is limited only based on the experience of the pastor. But that is not to say that you shouldn't follow any of it. But you have to understand that there are certain areas na hindi magsisit well with you. And you know what, for the past year, one of the biggest reflections, and I don't want you to take this negatively because I'm all for your relationship with God. I'm all for it. I advocate it in this community, in this podcast. But sometimes we're learning what we're watching, it sometimes foster fear. And I've experienced that sometimes because we're consistently seeking his words from other people, from the experience of other people who are very authorized to say those stories or to say those words, to say God's words and to tell it. Sometimes it really fosters fear. So it's really important to do your due diligence, to research then, and to anchor yourself sa relationship mo with God instead of being fearful about it. So, minsan kapag umaattend or nanonood ng mga words from God, I always tell myself na there are certain areas that doesn't sit well with me and so I reject that. It's not to say na I don't believe the story, it's just the interpretation of it and how it could play a role in my growth, in my spiritual growth. I hope na nagme-make sense siya because we've talked about this in the retreat and nakakatakot talaga when you really kind of grown this relationship with God and you're listening to His words every single week, nakakatakot to make mistakes. Unconsciously, nalilimutan ko na pala na I'm living from a place of fear. And God doesn't want that. God doesn't want any of us to live from a place of fear, but from a healthy fear in which it would even inspire us and motivate us to do good and to glorify Him. If you're finding value in this podcast episode, I truly appreciate it if you can give this episode a 5-star rating. It really helps us build this community together and help us reach more people. I've been working on some things and hopefully we get to launch a merch or some merch very soon. Don't worry, you'll be the first group of people who would know. And yeah, I'm just excited for what's to come. So I really appreciate you being here. After saying or constantly practicing saying, I reject that, the next thing na gusto kong pag-usapan natin is this topic that I've been continuously mentioning sa mga previous episodes ko. Get very clear on your values first. You cannot protect what you don't even know. Again, allow me to tell this to you. You cannot protect what you don't even know. It's hard to protect your peace of mind if you don't know exactly what peace of mind actually feels like in your body or in your entire system. It's hard to protect your values, your beliefs, your boundaries when you don't know exactly what these boundaries are. Again, it's hard to protect something you don't even know. That's why before you set boundaries with people, you need to be very clear about what you stand for. Ano ba talaga yung mga non-negotiables mo? For me, Sunday church is sacred. So no matter what events or parties happen, unless immediate family members, if it conflicts, I'll choose church. Because I'm very, very clear with that. And I do not feel guilty when I say no to anything that isn't aligned with that. And that's the thing, di ba? When you're grounded sa values mo, when you're grounded sa core mo, yung no mo isn't just a random rejection for other people. It's a reflection of who you are. Kaya siya mas matibay, hindi siya madaling masira. Kasi you know na that no is what you needed to focus on your priorities. And if you do not take the time to really define what your values are, you'll find yourself easily swayed by guilt, by pressure, or even flattery from other people. But when your values are crystal clear, every decision becomes simpler. Does this align with what I stand for? May nagyaya bigla, may nag-comment bigla, may nag-share ng advice bigla, may nag-share ng opinion bigla. Does this align with what I stand for? If yes, go for it. Listen to it. Acknowledge it. Reflect on it. If no, reject it. I was reading a book. It's gifted by my managers. It's the book of Jay Shetty, Think Like a Monk. And I have this very powerful question there that I want to share with you. And it says, is this dust or is this me? Di ba kapag tumitingin daw tayo sa salamin, ang hirap mong makita yung sarili mo kapag maalikabok yung salamin. So it's like a metaphor when it comes to thinking of your boundaries and what you value in life. Is this dust? Or is it me? Alikabok lang ba to? Or ako talaga to? It's like having your own compass. Hindi ka maliligaw kasi may malinaw kang North Star. So every time that you get stumbled upon a decision or an advice given to you by others or somebody just triggering you, ask yourself, is this dust? Or is it me? Is this just noise or is this me? And sometimes, other than thinking of it as being very clear sa mga bagay na you stand for, bukod doon, I like to think of it as, who is this person in the first place? Kapag may mga nagbibigay sa inyo ng opinions from people about your life, kapag may nagbibigay sa iyo ng unsolicited advice, ask yourself, like, who is this person in the first place? I mean, if it's my parents, or my sister, or my boyfriend, I'd consider where the opinion is coming from. I know where my parents, my sister, or my partner, I know they're coming from a place of love and protection, and I am more than willing to consider their opinion. But if it's a distant relative, it's a neighbor, a random person, or a person that doesn't even have the life you want, what do you mean I'd take an advice from these people? No. But of course, syempre, if magulang mo or someone special in your life and they're meddling with your life and you don't like it, maybe take some time din talaga to sit with the feeling of why this person's opinion matter to you or why this person's opinion affects you. Kasi baka they're just really important in your life. And you just love them enough that you want to consider their opinion. And you have to acknowledge that truth first. But of course, figure out a way how to make those decisions for yourself because you care for you. And not just because you care for the people you love. Again, eventually, acknowledge the love, the support, the concern of your parents. But also at the same time, I hope you figure out a way then to make a decision for yourself because you care for you. You care for your future. And that this isn't just guilt in itself, it's love. You're making this decision not just simply because you are guilty, but because you love yourself. I don't know what decision is for you. It could be a big one. It could be a small one. But at the end of the day, siguro yung mga listeners ko dito have been considering a lot of opinions recently or for the past years of your life that you forgot to sit with your feeling or to ask yourself, what do you really want? Or what is the thing that I value? Or what is it that I dreamed about? And so once you get honest with that, Baka yun yung reason for you to take care of yourself first, to look after yourself first, at unahin mo muna yung sarili mo before you ever get to consider all the other people in your life. Kasi for sure, kagaya nga ng sabi ko, for sure, you've prioritized a lot of people already. The fact that you're listening to this episode means that you must have prioritized all the other people in your life and you haven't even looked after yourself. And so this might be your sign, the sign that you're waiting for to choose you, to prioritize you. And that doesn't mean you're completely getting rid of these people in your life, no matter how important they are. Hindi. Ibig lang sabihin nun, you love these people enough that you know that you can give more to them kung uunahin mo din yung sarili mo. Once you get very clear with your values, with your non-negotiables, I feel like when it's clear already, you don't even have to explain yourself. Specifically, you don't have to over-explain yourself. We often feel pressured to give long, defensive reasons when we say no. I have to be honest, when I was talking to that auntie, grabe yung ick. Grabe yung, I hope I can make a speech about this. Parang gusto kong i-explain bakit ko ayaw ganyan. Pero the truth is simple. I won't be able to make it. Yun lang dapat yun. I already have a commitment prior. Those things are enough. Kasi the longer you explain to these people why you can't go, why you don't want to, the more you're giving them space to debate your decision. Boundaries become harder to protect when you open them up for negotiation. Again, boundaries become harder to protect when you open it up for negotiation. Sometimes it's just easier to say yes and then disappoint the person because you had a no in mind already. Actually, I ended up saying yes, I try. But I knew I won't go, so the conversation would just be finished. Nung tinatanong na ako why I can't attend, I said a couple of things. Mainly, yun nga, sabi ko I have church and I have stuff to do. And that's it. I had to end the call by saying I would try. Pero alam ko deep down, di talaga ako attend. And yeah, hindi talaga ako attend. And it's the best decision I've ever had. I mean, it's not like it's a big of a deal or like I'm the host of the event or like it's my own or it's my immediate family member's event. It's a small thing. But I would say that I'm slightly triggered by it. But I'm so grateful that I get to reflect on that decision and that saying no through this episode. So, feeling ko, brain dump ko to. So, thank you for being able to sit with me. And for sure, you also get to experience stuff like this. No matter how little it is, no matter how small the situation is, it piles up. You already know na ubos ka na, naiinis ka na, easily triggered ka na. Kasi pinalampas mo yung mga maliliit na bagay. When you know you should have sit with it, you should have thought about it before saying yes. Because if you can't say no on the small things, how are you able to say no on the big things? Big things that could completely and ultimately affect your life. And it brings me back to this certain decision I made a year back. So when everything was kind of mess up with my relationship with Shurens, I had to tell my mama na wag mo nang babanggitin sa mga kamag-anak namin. Kasi baka machika niya, ganyan. And people will judge all that. And I know they would judge. And so, you know what? Baka alam nyo pa nga yung mga nangyari sa akin at that time more than any of my relatives. Believe me, because I made sure talaga na no one knew about it. And it's definitely the best decision ever. I happened to attend the wedding ng isa kong pinsan and they were very curious about what happened, why I went to Sagada alone, why they can't search my partner's Facebook and all that. They even told me na they stalked me. So my closest cousin, siya lang kasi yung may alam ng buong kwento. My closest cousin and I shrugged it off and denied it smoothly and we nailed it. One of the best things I learned from that is that if you allow people to know a piece of your decision, even if they know why you made it or how you came up with it, you're giving them space to judge your life. Again, if you allow people to know a piece of your decision, even if they know why you made it or how you came up with it, you're literally giving them a space to judge your life. And I don't want it. And that's it. I mean, if you will continuously allow people to know your decision, to know why you came up with it or how you came up with it, you're just giving them a free pass to judge your life, judge your entire being. And you don't want that. Of course, we have relatives naman talaga who are really concerned about us. And here's the thing, no? Alam niyo yun kung sino sila. We often underestimate our gut feeling, but our gut feeling says it all. If you're not comfortable following the advice, if you're not comfortable or if there's an ick following that advice or just literally an ick with that person, no matter how blood related you are, listen to it. At first, setting boundaries will feel very uncomfortable. Parang may heaviness talaga sa dibdib after you say no kasi sanay ka na i-please ang lahat. But guilt doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means that you're growing. You're getting older, and that means you're acquiring even more wisdom, not just from these people anymore, but from other people. People who have the life you want. And you have to continuously rewire your brain to understand na saying no is not selfish. It's leadership. It's protection. You are protecting your time, your energy, your peace, at hindi mo kasi pwedeng ibigay lahat sa iba. Tapos wala ka namang ititira para sa sarili mo. So when guilt shows up, remind yourself lang na you're not rejecting the person. You're just rejecting the idea, the belief, the comment, the opinion, the unsolicited advice. And you're protecting your peace. Over time, yung guilt na yan, mag-fade yan. And it will be replaced with peace and confidence. And with this confidence na you know that the people you're listening to are your people. At hindi basta-basta kung sino lang. Because not everyone will celebrate your boundaries. A lot of people would be annoyed by it. Some people will get offended. Some will test your limits. Others will try to guilt trip you. And that's normal. The goal is not to avoid all the conflict, but to actually stay consistent with your boundaries, even when distraction, opinions, unsolicited advice comes. Kung dati sanay na sanay ka na inaalaw mo sila lagi na marinig yung yes mo, syempre magugulat sila pag magno-no ka na this time. But as long as you stay calm, you stay respectful, I don't want you to forget that. You can build better boundaries without feeling guilty and still be respectful and firm. They will eventually adjust. They will eventually respect that. Boundaries are not about controlling other people's reactions. They're about protecting yours. You're protecting your peace regardless of other people's reactions and opinions. That's about it, everybody. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I hope you learned something and I'd love to know your thoughts. Send me some happy birthdays in the Q&A. I'd love it. I think I've been celebrating my birthday for 2 years now in this community and I love spending it with you. For the poll naman, when someone invites you to an event na ayaw mong puntahan, what do you usually do? Do you say yes kahit ayaw mo out of guilt? Or you can politely say no and move on with your life and with your plans? If you also enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend who might need a little extra encouragement. And you can also share your takeaways on social media. And don't forget to tag me. I love seeing you guys sharing stories. Again, this has been your friend and your host, Risha. Know that I'm grateful for you. I've always been. And I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for you big time. I'll see you soon. And until then, don't forget to always keep moving. Bye.